Good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First RevOps with Zach Hussion. How you doing, man? It's been a little
Good.
bit.
Yeah, a little bit. We were sick last week. It got us. The norovirus got us,
Yeah, it
but
does that.
it was good. It gave me a much needed break, I guess, from the normal day to day. But we're good.
That's
We're
what I
back in
love.
action. We're excited to talk to you. I think we missed a week or so, and yeah, we're gonna be talking about some fun stuff today.
Yeah, that's why I love talking to you. Always looking at the bright side of things, even like that. um, and uh, we're going to try to find some bright side today with this concept of unified revenue view. Um, I've had a lot of fun making the unified customer view, real for people, and having it just do some amazing things in terms of aligning teams in a way that I've never seen before, and just making conversations easier, clearer decision making gets easier, all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we started. So I've been doing the series with Clement and Casey. We did 6 weeks on the unified customer view, going through this playbook. We started doing the unified revenue view, and got into the playbook yesterday. And like, I was like, I gotta talk to Zach about this situation because it's not looking good. Um, so so today I'm prepping, and like this post from Claude, like just by like, look at the series and then go look at unified revenue view and just make a post, right? Literally, this is how, like, I just want to read it. Like, it's so good. Like, your CEO asks, what's our commercial health right now? Uh, how long does it take to answer that question? In most organizations, the honest answer is days, maybe a week, because sales has pipeline data, finance has accounting data, delivery has fulfillment data, support has renewal signals, and none of these systems are talking to each other. So someone opens a spreadsheet, pulls numbers from 4 tools, makes educated guesses about what actually is committed versus what's optimistic, and the CEO gets a number that everyone in the room knows isn't quite right. Right? That's not a revenue view. That's a revenue guess. A unified revenue view means everyone making commercial decisions sees the same truth, not optimistic pipeline, not backward looking accounting, relationship based commercial reality from first signal through renewal. Sales sees usage patterns before the expansion conversation. Delivery sees deal commitments before they start work. Finance sees deal progression as it happens, and success sees the original promises that were made. And the part that nobody talks about, most RevOps teams build pipeline visibility and stop. Uh,
Yep.
they they configure deals, maybe quotes. It's almost like this chat was listening to the conversation yesterday with Casey and Clement, right? Because deals, and I'm gonna show this to you like on a playbook
Yeah, I
after I
can't
give you
wait. I
a
can't wait to,
chance,
to to get defensive about this, but like with
right?
like a good explanation.
Right. So they configure deals,
Yeah.
maybe quotes, but orders, invoices, payments,
Yeah.
line items tracking what was actually delivered. That's where the real commercial intelligence lives. And that's exactly where most implementations go dark.
Yeah.
And to be fair, or the SaaS has not made it easy to get to this kind of view. And that's why we're so excited, because in HubSpot now, you can get, like we said, from first signal through renewal, we can create this level of visibility right now.
Mm-hmm.
But today we're going to talk about, the gotchas in the middle, and, we will show you some light at the end of the table, at the end of
Yeah.
the tunnel, I promise. But Zach, would
All
love your
right.
thoughts.
So it's as you're saying this, I'm thinking about like the different levels of readiness, I guess, or the approach that different companies and organizations take to this problem. You mentioned, like, we develop up to the deal closed, won or lost, and then it kind of that's it, right? And then things disappear into this other ERP or QuickBooks or whatever system we're going to use. And that scenario that you talked about is like, that's the everyday. Sometimes, right, you have like, well, not some, okay, you have a couple different types, I guess, of organizations in terms of, like I said, their readiness, their willingness to change, and how they approach this problem. Some of them recognize right away that there is value to connecting the systems and the efficiencies that we gain as a team, as an organization, how it can help improve our internal experience, how it helps improve the customer experience and leads to growth, right? And they recognize that, hey, when we connect all this data and we start getting it all into this one nice system, that we can leverage all this unstructured data and we can use all these awesome AI tools and we can do all this stuff, right? It's like they have a vision of how it can work, and it aligns really well with how we want it to work as a HubSpot partner. And then you have clients who are kind of at the other end of that spectrum, and they don't have the leadership team that has that same vision. They typically tend to operate in silos as an organization. Like, they have like kind of more systemic problems, I think. Like, it's cultural in a lot of ways. And you can paint this picture of this unified data view and all the benefits that it provides, but actually getting there and getting the right buy-in from the right people, and, like, the willingness to change, maybe we're entering your information over here today, but let's enter it over here now in HubSpot and have it flow this way instead of, back in, right? Or at least just, again, acknowledging the value in these things. And that's where it ends at closed won or closed lost.
Yeah. And again, like, this is where there's so much opportunity in HubSpot right now. And it's not about replacing other systems.
No.
Because far and away, like, and as we talk about this, I'm just gonna like lead with this, like, because this quote to cash piece,
Yeah.
right? And why RevOps hasn't owned all of it, right? It's
Mhm.
like the first step, like understanding that if you don't own the ERP data or the accounting data or whatever, like, finishes this view, like, you got to know how to have this conversation, or else you're never getting, like, you're going to be made responsible for it.
The conversation ends at bookings.
Right.
PO received.
Right. But when you look at, if anybody looks up like the natural definition of revenue operations, it goes until there's like revenue.
Yeah,
Like
until you get
there's
paid.
revenue, right?
Yeah.
Yet, since it comes from like this RevOps concept that comes from SaaS, like you always do, it's like focus on marketing and sales, and then we'll figure that out. And then, right. So, so to prepare you for this conversation of trying to do things in HubSpot that people just, they naturally don't think about it being a HubSpot role, or if they look at AI or ask anybody else in the free world, like, why would you do that in HubSpot? That's not what HubSpot's for. So this categorization of data, because what we need to do to get the unified revenue view, right? We're trying to create visibility so that it can be communicated to anybody looking at it, or anybody who needs an email about it, a notification, whatever, right? And by the way, this, when you need to send an invoice to 10 people, this is what communicating, revenue data looks like. Like 3 categories. We need to communicate data, we need to manage data, and we need to create data. As we talk about the kind of data we want to communicate, that doesn't mean we're going to manage or create the data in HubSpot, especially when it relates into to accounting. Like, keep that shit like over.
We're just trying to just show you what it is in relation to all these other things, and now you can look at trends and come up with your own conclusions about stuff, and it's all in one place.
Right. And like, it's fun because we've been in these conversations, right? We know how to talk to these parts of the organization and what to say and what to never say, right? Or else you just lost the chance to have HubSpot be involved like altogether. And like the story I like to share before we hit this, like in 2021, right? Like payment links came out.
Mhm.
And in the organization I was in, sales kept telling me, like, man, we're trying to sell these $200,000 instruments. And I got to do these quotes, which are just as hard as the big stuff for like $600 like
Mhm.
parts.
Mhm.
And they know, and this is like a team of 5, everyone telling me in their own way, we lose money on this thing every single time we sell one,
Oh my god, I've had plenty of those conversations. Yep.
right? And so then I'm in HubSpot and I'm not like, at this point, I didn't even know I didn't have RevOps as a language, right? I'm just supposed to make it easier to buy from us and
Right.
make the experience better, right? I see payment links and I'm hearing this story and I have a good relationship with the CFO, which is like step 1,
Yep.
right? But then what I had to do is say, look, we all know this is true. Like, we need to solve for this. We should solve for this if we're being like responsible. Uh, and but what we're gonna do, because it's not like the process is designed to be easier. So that means we can't just use whatever payment system we want. Like we're gonna
Right.
use Stripe because it's easy to set up. So you get these agreements, and then you say at the end of the month, that means your accounting person, they're going to take 10 minutes to reconcile this other account,
Right.
right? 10 minutes to save time and money from the sales team
Yep.
that we're saying we're trying. So this is a goal, right?
Yep.
Can we take 10 minutes, right? That's how I delivered it.
Yep.
So I got approval,
Yep.
right? If you just say, "Hey, we need to set up this other like cash mechanism, and there's going to be a different bank account involved," like, no, like, get out of here.
Right.
Like, you never have a chance. So as we go through this, like, this is why there's so much opportunity, but we don't see a lot of people in the ecosystem that can have that kind of nuanced conversation, right? So, what I discovered yesterday and why I'm so excited about this, because it's just such a I'm sorry, folks, there's a process. And, while I try to interesting conversation between like standardization and customization, like every business is different. Yep. But if you don't follow this flow, like the fact that it makes conversations harder, like it turns into like, well, you just didn't execute it well. It's not that it's not possible or that it's not the right thing to be doing. So if we start with a unified customer view, right? Like you cannot track commercial progression without the relationship context of who they are, where they are in the journey, how much they've purchased with you, how much they should be purchasing. Like all of that starts to tie in.
Can you blow it up a little bit?
Yeah.
There you go.
And I can tell you, Zach, when I first started building this out, I was like, maybe I'm going to have to start with a unified revenue view sometimes because everybody wants that really bad. Right. And this is how we get them on board. And sometimes we're trying to like, trick the sales team into trying something different, right? But honestly, the unified customer view has been working so well in terms of just immediately getting everybody on the same page. We don't have to risk this part, right? Because what we don't want to do, like we mentioned at the jump, like putting a number together, especially a forecast that everybody immediately knows, like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if that, Zach, how did you get that number? Like,
Yep. That
and then
number looks like
somebody's
it's
like,
like where's it? There's there's $1 million difference between your number and my number. What is, what's the difference?
right. And then they pull this spreadsheet out, like bam. And
Yep.
it's dead on accurate. They just didn't have it in the system. And Like we cannot do that because it just breaks trust. And now everybody's like, okay, we'll just keep track of spreadsheets because this is too hard. Right.
Yep.
Forcing like unified customer views start to just naturally start to collect this context. Right. And so it starts out fairly simple, right? If we've got your unified customer view foundation and we've got contact object configured, with value path properties or lifecycle stages, right? Company object, some kind of health understanding, right? From your customer base, associations between contacts and companies, of
Hmm.
course, and
Sure.
more and more leaning less on parent, child, and primary and moving to billing and shipping, accounting, accounts receivable, like those kinds of labels,
Hmm.
right? Yes, folks, we can do all that in HubSpot.
Yep.
Uh,
And parent child is still, still relevant, but it's like that's not the only association that you can make.
right. And teams actively using this customer view, right? So we're already exposing the concept of like customer lifetime value and what did they order last time, are like usually the things that you want in the unified customer view side of things, whether you're in sales or success, right? And then like we move down here, and yesterday I was like, uh, what we've already said is that one of these 7 things is usually in HubSpot, right?
And number one, right there,
Yeah.
existing deal pipeline stages documented.
And it always floored me, like when I got my second role, um, like working as like inside sales and uh, marketing like consultant, like one of my first things was like, all right, we're setting up HubSpot. And the first thing I did was I took a mishmash quoting process where there was like manufacturer reps and like 7 different ones were quoting 7 different ways. And it took me a month to bring them into HubSpot and do quoting. And still to this day, it's tough to hear that people use Sales Hub and do not do the quoting
Yeah.
there, right? So don't be surprised when we say like deal pipeline stages, probably documented to some extent, right? Like at least in the system and their stages, but the rest of these things, right? Not only is it not done in HubSpot, the like we've said before, RevOps being in charge of this, right, can be hard to find,
And
right?
also,
So
why are people not doing some of these things, right? Like you talked about quotes. Like I think HubSpot quotes are great. They're not perfect, but they're pretty great, you know. But they're great for, this portion. Then like if you're over here, and you have that more complex, more engineered solution, and you got to get into that costing kind of component and stuff like that, right? It's like HubSpot can, help you with all of these things, but there's more steps to the process. There's more time that, we need to commit to solving for this thing. And it's going to cost more, right, to get this thing fixed. But then when you come out of it the other end, where it's like, okay, I have an opportunity and I was able to add my line items and generate my quote, right? Or we incorporated like more of a CPQ process in there, and I'm able to get my quote and then boom, get that out to the client or the prospect, get it signed, move it down to the next step of the process and have it all connected nicely and working well. It's like I did it all on platform. I didn't have to log into another quoting tool or another, spreadsheet or another template. I didn't have to, right? It was just I didn't have to manually type up every line item and every little thing, right? Um, and that's, that's it. There are some big challenges there with like because there are a lot of other layers to this in terms of other systems and tools and IT and teams that get involved. And like I have some clients who are just like, "Yep, we want to bring it all into HubSpot. Like we want to start with HubSpot, end with HubSpot." We have obviously these other systems, but we know we want them to talk to each other. We want things that, and then there are other folks who are like, we've committed to building this other thing. And that, that train has left the station. So you're going to incorporate that into HubSpot somehow.
Yep.
And it doesn't solve the problem,
Right. It's not an insurmountable problem though anymore. And this is why
it's a lot easier to like handle these things now. But yeah, there are these other things that kind of just, throw the wrenches in the gears, and now you have to say, okay, this is what we got to work with. We can't do this. This utopian kind of HubSpot. There is then that reality thing kicks in sometimes too.
Yeah, for sure. And this is where like just the concept, when you can make it like an outcome, like a unified view, just helps dramatically. And here's an example, like this invoice payment process, documented, right? Just to get this stuff on paper, right? Like to bring the right people in the room who actually know what the process is, that are never going to touch HubSpot probably, but we need the data. We need to understand the process to understand what data we need and when we can get it and all these things, right? And when you can start these projects with the concept of unified revenue view or unified customer view agreed to, and you get everybody, right? Like accounting, they're sending invoices to customers. So that's like customer facing if you want people to pay you, right? And they love what happens when you start to communicate better with people that you want money from. They pay more, they pay faster, there's less collections, right? And so being willing to say, hey, leader, right, unified customer view, you want that, right? Like unified revenue view, you want that. All right, everybody who's impacted by those things, we need at least one conversation at the beginning, right? So then when we get to the end, the difference between, hey, accounting, we really need to get that invoicing data into HubSpot because sales wants it. They would like to see it. A lot of times they're asked for it. So can we just...
This is how it helps them.
Right? Because the outcome is, can we get that data into HubSpot? Like, there's like, tell me what you need.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because you guys have already aligned on like, this is important, right? This is, we've given this thing a name, and that we have an initiative here where we've all bought into the value that this will bring to the organization, that it'll bring to our customers, that it'll bring to our employees. All the hard work was in those early conversations to get everybody to say, oh, you know what, this is actually worthwhile. And if we do it right together as a team, we all come out of this on the other end with a better lifestyle. It's like we're coming here every day. Every day we come into the job and we bitch and moan about this tool not working or this thing not, it's like, imagine if we could just remove a lot of like all that, It's like I come in, everything's here, I'm all connected, I have visibility into what marketing's doing. Like I'm a sales guy, let's say, right? I have visibility into what marketing's doing, I have visibility into what the rest of the sales team is doing, I have visibility into what's going on in the finance, I have bookings data, I have sales data, I have all of it right here. Now leave me the hell alone, let me go sell.
Yeah.
But the normal scenario is I spent 20% of my day just hunting that shit down.
Right. And like, this is what we've all agreed to as a team because I'm the account manager too. And so the customer's used to asking me, I can't find the email or wasn't copied in or whatever. Right now I got to call you guys. Nobody likes that motion. Right. And this is the difference. Like this kind of thing, like having trouble getting there comes from saying, like making it about HubSpot complete versus making the unified revenue view complete. Because most of the people I talk to, and this is why like the concept of quick wins is just such a trap because they're like, all right, we'll talk to accounting later. We just really need to get this part in and then we'll have everything super clear and then we'll talk to accounting and they're just going to get it. Nope. That's not how it works. If you start with them in the beginning and then you come back and say, hey, accounting,
now we're ready for you.
Remember how we agreed as a team that we want a unified revenue view, and that includes invoice data. You remember that? Yeah.
It's your turn.
Like, right. So we're ready now. And so can you just tell us how can you help us learn how we're gonna get that data into HubSpot, not why it
Right.
needs to be in HubSpot.
Already talked about that.
Right. Exactly. And it means just everything to approach it from this perspective. And unfortunately, folks, all of these 7 bullets, like they're all connected, and you have to find a way to touch them like that, because you're not in charge of order fulfillment. You're not in charge of invoicing. Like, especially in SaaS, like sometimes SaaS, like recurring revenue is somehow like responsibility of a completely different team, right?
Yeah,
Product
renewals.
catalog and pricing being owned by engineering or the product team,
Yeah.
right?
Like every team has something to gain. Like when you look at this unified customer view, this unified data view, even if you don't have a HubSpot license, right? It's like everybody has, I think, something to gain from this in some way, shape, or form. Because even like in the finance example, right? Okay, maybe you're not even using HubSpot really, or maybe one person on your team is, the rest of the team, it's like, but you being able to input the data that is then now into the view of a sales rep who can now do that, use that to sell more, navigate a difficult conversation better, or maybe just not even have to pick up the phone to call you and ask you about something, right? Which is just like so critical. It's like I don't want to ask anybody. It's right here. Where is it? It should be right in front of me. Then there are those downstream kind of implications for that, right? There's a domino effect. It impacts everybody else around you too. And then like, again, so you're all helping each other in some way to keep that data connected because you all benefit from it in some way. Some maybe a little bit more than others, but then you roll all that up and it's like, no, now the organization benefits from this. It's not just this one person or this one team. It's like, well, now our company actually is using this engine, properly.
Yeah. No, it's so hard to measure like the benefits, because there's just so much like of this just gray area bullshit that gets in the way of progress, because like you're forced to talk about the tools specifically at some point, and as soon as you go there, it's like, well, that's my tool, I'm responsible for that, why are you talking? Like, I'm going to name it this way. And the fact is, folks, and this is where it's so counter to the way that everything's been taught, like the idea of single source of truth and system of record. Like the whole system is the system of record. And if I've got sales needing to see true data, because if they don't see that, they are calling you, and it might cost them like the next conversation if they don't have the right data, because they've already called you a couple times this week and everybody's annoyed and they're like, oh, maybe I'll wait till next week, so I'll wait for the next one, right? Like the data needs to be where it needs to be, like to support the user at that moment. And one of the values of AI is it's easier to build that stuff. It's easier to maintain it. So just because it has to be in 2 places at once doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. You might
Right.
find some best practices that tell you that, but that's just not the truth
No. I mean,
anymore,
it's like if you think
right?
about it, like we'll use sales and finance as the example again. Sales would live in HubSpot and do everything that they need to do in HubSpot ideally. Finance doesn't need to live in HubSpot, but they need HubSpot data. Just like sales isn't going to live in the ERP, but they need ERP data. And so it's like just getting that unified data view, but the data resides in multiple systems. It's just the same. It's just, it's aligned. It's not, it's this number in HubSpot and this number in this other system. And then we got to get the spreadsheets out.
Yeah. And like so much of that, because and again, this is the value of getting people on the unified view page and just talking about that. Like you got to try everything in your power to make it not about the systems and the tools that you're using, because Like, we get it. It has to be named a certain way in the ERP, in accounting, for deals, for the sales team, for people to understand what they're looking at. And very often, it's a different name that needs to be seen. And guess what, folks? It's never been easier to transform the name into what it needs to be by the time that it gets there. And as long as we're talking about tools, and again, this is from experience of the reason that we cannot connect the ERP and Salesforce back in that day, like the real conversation with CIO, is because the names don't match. Right? That's why we can't connect these two primary systems of data. And that's not okay. Like,
It's
we
not
don't
a
have
good
to
enough
make
reason.
that choice anymore. So when we bring it out of the tools, we can get people to say, well, I need it to look like this, and here's why. And then the process, this is what the process should look like as a business, not as so we can use these tools.
Right.
Because the tools they're great, folks. HubSpot and lots of other tools, they can do whatever we need them to do. Right. So if we can get the conversation around, okay, if invoicing data needs to be in the unified revenue view, let's talk about how. Right. And it is helping people unravel this baggage. And another example I like to use is QuickBooks. Right. Like, QuickBooks is built for accounting, not communication. Right. So when the client tells you, can you send it to these five people? Right. It has to happen manually. Because QuickBooks only allows.
This just happened to me like yesterday. Client was, I'm like, hey, are you the right person for me to send these invoices to? She's like, yeah, I am. But can you also send them to, Nick? And I'm like, I can, but it's a manual step for me to do that because my accounting software only lets me put one contact in there. And then I can trigger an email, but then I have to enter another email in there to do it. Right. And I have to do it every month. And I'm going to forget. I don't want to do that. So how do you set it up so I can send it to, right? So,
right.
Enter HubSpot.
You use the system that's designed to do that. And that's sort of like, when you can speak plainly like that, like we put all these words in the way of being able to speak plain language with the person in accounting. Like, if you can start to say, well, we need to send it to these five people, right? Can we do that in QuickBooks? No, we can't. Okay, that means we have to do it in HubSpot. If we have to do it there, what needs to happen to allow for that?
Right.
Right. And it's like, it's okay to move the data over here because now we can do that. And then it's within a month, the collections go down. And then all of a sudden you got accounting's your best friend. Right. But it's been so interesting to learn how to unravel that QuickBooks best practices, as the number one accounting software for ever.
Yeah.
You have to be ready to say, I understand, this is probably how you think it's supposed to go because this is the way it's always gone. But this is what's possible,
right.
over here. Right. And start to speak in just very plain language about what, each of these individuals care about. Right. And it takes some understanding. That's where I like to do my best work, is helping people understand how to give these different groups the language they need, right, to understand. And using language like unified revenue view, you don't have to explain those words.
Right.
Usually. And you can just build on top of that, the different words, instead of SQL and pipeline forecasting and just all these words that don't mean anything to the people outside of, marketing and sales.
Sure.
Right. And it's just been a lot of fun this year. It feels like, cracking the code a little bit. Right. But, and people are getting on board. Right.
Yeah, I
But
see it
just
more.
understand it's not easy when you look at this list, right?
Yeah, I see more and more, requests, over the last 3 years. It's, gone from just to help me fix this clunky process to this, we want to add a lot of value to the company by being able to see this data and leverage this data in HubSpot, because it allows us to gain all these efficiencies and improve, this rate by X and that rate by Y. And, I had a client recently that was like, we'll sell a, we'll sell a service. And let's say we book it for like $1 million. And then that's great. We can see $1 million there. But then that comes, that $1 million now is like we have to go execute. And now we have to have all these projects that we actually invoice against that kind of, it's almost like a blanket order, right? But it's like this is like and so now it's like we're spending all this time, reconciling, like, okay, we have $1 million PO here, but like we haven't done any work against it yet. How do we bring that together? Right. And it was like, well, you have this order object in HubSpot that you can nest underneath a deal. And you have your $1 million deal. And then every time you have an order that comes in for $10,000, we can run a calculation and you can see, okay, we have $700,000 left to open. We need to go make sure that we're closing that gap.
Yeah.
The challenge is like integration. Like, how do we get the order information into HubSpot? Right. So, okay, like let's set up an integration. Well, we can't really do that today. Right. It's not really on the table for short term. Okay. Well, can you get that data into a spreadsheet pretty easily and then set up an import file? So at least you can import the data once a week or once a month. So you guys can then just do it's like it should be an automatic reconciliation. It's like I import the orders and I tie them to the deal objects. And now it's like, okay, I can see that number in a report view immediately.
Yeah.
Right. And so you walk from import to, then you go to the integration. Right.
Yep. Like, because that's where, again, this is another spot where the unified view exists somewhere at some point in time. Usually it's like the moments between in somebody's head and in documentation is like so fleeting, right? Because we just need it for that meeting or
Right.
that like board review, right? Where I love that example, Zach, because and this is where like the outcomes of what we're trying to accomplish just so important. Like can we just make it visible? We
Right.
know the data, we know where it is right now.
Right.
Can we just make it visible in one place
Yep.
and make it easy? Because guess what? That person that's going to be responsible for exporting. And again, HubSpot folks, like don't sleep on how valuable and how easy it is to import data into HubSpot, because in most other systems, not that easy.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you just say, oh, we'll do an export and import at the end of every day,
Yeah.
like people
Good
have
luck.
nightmares about
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like once you
But
get your
that,
import template set up and the HubSpot remembers all the property matching, mappings, and it's just like, here you go, and done. It's like a
yeah.
5-minute exercise.
Right. And that 5-minute exercise can be done by the person that's spending an hour manually entering some data
Reconciling something.
somewhere.
Yep.
Right. And now all of a sudden, there's so much gains because first of all, the data is coming together and there's proof that it actually wasn't that hard.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
dude, you would think that I just gave them like the secret recipe to Coca-Cola or like a cure for cancer. Like the reactions that you get from some, so they're like, oh my God, this just changed how we can look at things and approach things and how we work. And like, you have no idea how happy this just made 50 people on the team, who've been
Yeah.
complaining about the same thing for the last 5 years.
Yep. And have been complaining about the meetings where you sit there and you start to like forecast, right?
Right.
Which
How do you
is
guys
where
feel
everybody
about this one?
starts.
Yeah. Where do you
Right?
think
Like,
we're gonna land, guys?
That's pretty good. I
Yeah.
think 73%, chance to close in the next 47 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's that based on? I've done
Yeah.
this for a while.
That's
So
right. Took
feels,
out my
feels pretty
calculator.
good. Right.
My
Okay. Well,
TI-89.
if you're right, we gotta buy a bunch of stuff to support that forecast. So are you sure? Right? Like so many
Right.
decisions.
Yeah.
And we don't even have the whole picture like most of the time. So step one, can we just create a whole picture that
Yep.
everybody understands? And then you can build on top of that very, very quickly because you can get to days like this as we wrap, where Thursday morning meeting, leadership dashboard shows actual revenue, high confidence, medium confidence, at risk. And then we can get to this question because we're not spending all of our time confirming these buckets. And it's like, oh, is this really medium to strong? Is it really at risk? I mean, oh no, I talked to them last week. We're good. Okay, why is it still listed as at risk?
Right.
Right. And we so many management meetings. I like that, right? And we never even get to this question. Uh,
Yeah. How do we
even
fix
though
the ones that are at
everybody's
risk?
right, even though everybody's prepared to answer it, we just don't even get to it because we're talking about the data and the health
Right.
and like the trust
But you could
factors.
also then get to the next level of that is like, well, how do we get ahead of it before it becomes that risk, right? Or like, how do we be more proactive and less reactive to these things, right? What are the
Right.
early indicators that this thing is going to be at risk? Just something as simple as the customer, like a customer health score,
Yeah.
when you can fine tune something like that. I mean, if you have all of your data connected into HubSpot, all of your emails are flowing, all your calls, all your deals, all your meetings, everything is going in there. And then you have this like smartest entity in the world overlaid on top of it that, you can kind of just tell it to say, hey, give me a heads up when things are starting to go south.
Yep. Agents right in
Right.
the middle of the
Right.
CRM record
And
now,
now the next thing you
folks.
know, it's like the sales rep is jumping on to fix the problem before the sales manager even knows about it. And hopefully comes to a resolution. No one has, it's not like they're hiding anything. It's just like, no, we jumped on it, we fixed it. Okay, now I need a little help. All right, bring in my executive sponsor, the management manager can help me out a little bit. Now maybe the two of us can fix it, right? Until, then we can maybe prevent it from actually showing up at that conference room table or, in the risk pile. And then if I'm the owner, I'm going to be sitting there saying like, well, guys, what the hell? How do we get all these risky clients? What are you doing? Why aren't we fixing this? Like, look at our core values. It's like, that's the top one, right? It's like, you failed. And everyone's like, I was like, I don't get the information until it's too late. What do you want from me? Right.
Right. Or I've sent you an email every week for the past 10 weeks. And because we're trying to communicate everything via email,
Right.
it got missed.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, we can do better, folks.
Sure.
And we want to help with that. So um, this is fun, dude. Like it's so much fun seeing people start to get it at higher rates than I've experienced in the past. And I think there's two sides of that, right? We're just so like, people are disinterested in the way that things have always been done and the way that, you're supposed to do it. And AI is just helping people believe, right, that this stuff can be done at scale with complexity. And it's fun to see new willing participants every
Hmm.
day to try and solve some of these problems that just haven't been solved before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And there's a clear difference too, I think, in like your time to value, um, and the results that you get from these types of initiatives when you come in prepared and you've done some of your own planning and some of your own strategy, and it's like you have the right mindset, you're open to change, and I was like, you see, that's the difference between this thing taking multiple years and a couple months sometimes, maybe a couple months is a little bit too aggressive, but You know what I'm saying, right? You can see that there's more of a like a linear kind of slow and steady. We're gonna get this thing done at some point, and then there's other teams that just go take off and say we're gonna just crush it. Like we are
Right.
committed to this thing, like
Yeah.
we understand that there's value when we get to the end of this, and then we're gonna come out better and stronger and faster. And they're like, let's do it. Like let's get it done. Like I don't want this thing to drag out forever, right? Who
Yeah.
does? Who does?
Right. It's never like that's the part that's changed, folks. It's not the build. It's not the implementation of the product or tech itself. It's can we get everybody in the room aligned on what we're trying to accomplish, and now
Yeah.
you can go faster than you've
Yeah.
ever imagined, right?
And when you're struggling too, like here's something that I found to just be kind of helpful. It's like, you may be a marketing coordinator or a marketing manager, or you might be in that middle management kind of realm, and you see the value in this thing, and you're like, I gotta fight for this tooth and nail. You get maybe a little bit of buy-in, and now you're working with someone like me, and I come in and I say, I quickly realize there's some misalignment here. There's not buy-in from all the right people. There's not the right executives at the table because this needs to be top down. Like you really need, you can't, you need to have buy-in from leadership. This is impacting your organization, not just this one little thing. Get me involved. Introduce me. Have me help you.
Yeah.
I'm this third party who's done it with a bunch of people, for whatever reason, the CEO is going to listen to that more than they're going to listen to you because you've been whining about the same thing for the last 5 years. And it's not that you're wrong. It's wrong that they won't listen to you about this, but it's kind of like, let me help you get through to them in my brutally honest fashion to say, wake the F up. This is how it's got to work. If you want to change and grow and you're serious about it, then let's work on it. Let's get it. Let's get the right people in the room. And let's talk about this kind of value first framework that, a bro Chris has put together so beautifully. And let's follow a process to make this thing happen. But you can't do it with just one or two people in a middle management position typically.
Yeah. You got to embrace the reality that there's more people involved than you want there to be. And our challenge and our skill now is getting those people involved without slowing everything down to molasses.
Right.
Right. Like,
Yep.
because guess what? We're there to listen to them. It doesn't mean we're going to do everything they ask for.
Yeah.
Right. But when we give people voices at the front of the process,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to sing the same song at the end of the process.
Yeah. Our job
Right.
is to say no, or it's kind of non-negotiable. If you want this result,
Yes.
I don't know of another way to get there other than this way. Right. It's not that it is 100% the only way in the world to do something, but you're living in HubSpot's world, and you want this end result. We have to kind of work within this framework. I mean, it's not like HubSpot is just this open source, like bend it to do whatever the fuck you want it to do. Like there is, there have been some really smart people who have built this thing and they're like, well, people use it the right way. Like they can do really well. And then as soon as we try to do other things that really don't fit in there, it starts kind of losing a little bit of value. So it's like, believe me, like we don't want to do more work than we need to. We don't want you to do more work than you need to. We want to get this thing, we want to get you over this hump. So now you can start iterating and building more and, and actually continuing to grow and scale.
Yeah. Which is what everybody wants. Like that's the goal. So if you really want that,
Yep.
this is what it takes. Well, this has been fun, man. As always. I'm sure we're going to be dancing around this topic some more as we move
Sure.
forward. And I look forward to continuing the discussion with you next week.
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Thanks
All
again.
right. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, everybody. Thanks, Zach.
Bye.